Let's talk about Illustrator, how to get started, and setting up our workspace. Just a side note before we get started, I am working on my laptop just for the purposes of screen sharing. And it may look a little different than your Mac desktops that we have in the classroom, but everything's in the same place. It's just a little bit condensed, so closer together. We're going to start with talking about artboards, which is why I have my example of a travel poster project up here for you to see. An artboard is the space around all of my materials that I have out here, and they're workspaces that can be whatever size you want, however many you want, and they can move around as you work. So I want you to think of this blank space as not a white sheet of paper, but many sheets of working space that you can delete, add, and change size. So if you would like to get a second artboard, you're going to go to the artboard tool, which will be on your toolbar here. And you can always delete the artboards that are here. You can always make another one any size you'd like. Maybe if I want just my fonts to sample from fonts, I can make a small one over here. I can always click on one and move it with everything that's on it, which is very helpful too, so that I can rearrange my workspace very quickly, even with all of the things that are attached to the artboard. I can move everything. And then at the very, very end, if we go to print, I can print this. I can print this in a way that would only print artboard 1 or artboard 6. So all of my artboards have an assigned number, and this says artboard 6. I can rename them if I'd like, and I can go and print artboard 6. So I won't see anything else, and I won't have to delete it. So I have printed this. It didn't print anything else, and I can still go back and use the materials that I have on these artboards. I have a sample of the text that I made, the trees that I made, so I can always reuse those. I don't have to delete them. Okay, so those are our artboards and our working space. Let's go back to our home screen, and this is probably what your home screen looks like without any of the projects that we have already. And you're going to start with new file. Just like Photoshop or any other Adobe program, they make those buttons stand out by making them blue. So we have new file. We won't change any of our settings yet. I do want to encourage you guys to start titling your file before you start. So I'm going to title mine practice, and then I click create. Okay, so you see my artboard is here. I'm still on the artboard tool, so that's why it's highlighted. Let me go back to my selection tool so that you don't see that highlight anymore. And let's talk really quickly about our windows and our toolbar. If you don't have any of these windows, that's okay. You can always grab them from the window pull-down menu. There's many to choose from. And of course, mine looks a little bit different. I said I'm on my laptop, so I'd have to scroll down a little bit to find everything. And one of the most important things here is your toolbar. So if you don't see your toolbar on the side, you can go to toolbars, click basic, and make sure it's checked on, and then you will see it. So if I click it off, the toolbar will go away. I go back, click toolbar basic, it will come back. You can always edit your toolbar if you'd like, but you don't have to. All right, so we have our windows here. I have swatches and color right here because that's how Photoshop works, and it's similar for me. But if you're not used to Photoshop, then you can edit it and change it however you like. But I like to have the color up top as a default. And then we have our properties is usually our biggest area here. It will change based on the tool that we have selected. So it's very helpful for many of our tools, and it will give us some very quick actions, things that might pop up that we need that'll always be on the same window. So that's here for you. Okay, so let's draw something. So let's get started. I'll make a little shape. I'm going to grab one of my shape tools. You can use any of the shape tools and the line segment tool, just start creating a shape. Let me actually grab this type of polygon tool here, make a big one, and I'm going to move it over. Notice I switched to the first selection tool, the very top one. It's also V on your keyboard in order to move it over. If I had clicked the direct selection tool, I might have accidentally grabbed something. Well, I can move it over, but if I click again on that anchor point, then I would move the anchor point. So if that's not what I wanted, then that is where you went wrong. You clicked the wrong selection tool. So this is to talk about the difference between those two. I got scooched over a little bit and I can't grab my my scroll along the bottom edge. So what I'm going to do is actually a good time to show you our navigator, which is another window that I suggest you have open. If you don't have it, you can go to Window, find Navigator, and this helps you zoom in and out, and it also helps you move around the screen. So if I get zoomed in by accident, but I want to see something else, I can move around with this little red window. So Navigator is very helpful. Okay, back to our hexagon here. Let me go back and put it back into shape. I clicked Command Z on my keyboard if you guys want to use the shortcut keys. And you'll notice that once I click my shape and I have it selected, under Properties, this appearance window within the window will pop up, which says Fill, Stroke, and Opacity. So I have my fill color I can choose. I have my stroke color I can choose. And I can make it bigger if I would like, so you can see it. So just do it with that. Opacity is how dark it is. So if I want to turn my opacity down, it makes it see-through. If I were to have another color behind the hexagon, then you would see through it. Okay, so let's talk about moving around our shapes. We did do the selection is move the entire thing. You can always rotate. If we have that little arrow that pops up, there it is. We can rotate. And we have scale, make it bigger or smaller. If you scale it and you kind of move your mouse in or out, you'll end up squishing your shape. If you don't want to do that, while you're scaling, hold Shift on your keyboard and it will always keep the shape no matter where I move. It will keep the dimensions, the scale of the hexagon there. Okay, so that's the selection tool, the basic selection tool. That's V on your keyboard. The direct selection tool will change the shape of your shape. So we have our anchor points. All of these little square anchor points can be moved separately to make new shapes. We can take our circles next to the anchor points and move them as well to change the curve. So now I've made a totally different shape already by changing two things. I can move I believe I can move all of the points at once by choosing my curve, which is pretty cool if you want to double click on that. And then I can add it to a new shape, make a new one, change the color just to show you the difference between the two shapes. And we have what's really cool in Illustrator is our Pathfinder. So I know this kind of seems like I'm jumping ahead a lot, but this is a tool that will really help you create new shapes. If you're going for something very specific, you're going to need to use this very quickly. So our Pathfinder helps us combine shapes in different ways. So if I click Unite, if I select both my shapes and I click Unite, then you'll see it conjoins the two shapes, and it also takes one of the colors and fills it. You can always change the color later, of course. I'll go back, Command Z. I still have both shapes selected. I'm going to click another one just to show you. Minus front means that the purple shape was in the front, so it took out all of that and part of the green shape that was overlapping. Intersect is just the shape that was intersected with the purple and green shape. Again, it just stole one of the two colors. You can always change the color. We have include, which is the opposite of intersect. Divide, which you can't see the change right now, but if I click off of it, I ungroup it, and you can see that this shape divided from the intersect section. Go back. We have our trim. It grouped it again. So we see what trim did there. I'm unsure why trim got rid of the stroke, but I can always put the stroke back. Merge. And then we have crop. So some of them are similar outline. Minus back. I was looking for that minus back because it's the opposite of minus front that I showed you earlier. So we have minus front and minus back. So the green shape was in the front. No, it was in the back. So when I clicked minus back, the green shape disappeared. Okay, so those are our shapes and all of our Pathfinder tools that you can use. I'm gonna go back to properties. You can always flip right here. You can always flip your shape horizontally or vertically. You can always copy and paste and make multiples. Command C, Command V, flip, kind of combine those, things like that. Our brush. Okay, let's talk about that. I'm going to delete this. Let's talk about our brush versus our pen. Now, I know the pen is something that's very confusing for a lot of us because we try to click and draw, and it does not draw the way we think it's going to draw. The pen works in a series of points. They're anchor points. So we would click and let go, and then we would create a new point. And we create a new point. If I want it to be a curve, I would drag it. And we create a new point, drag it. If I want a curve, and I would create a new point. So that's how I create my shape with the pen. If I want to edit any of those points, of course, I can go back to my direct selection tool and move them and fix the curves to make new shapes. So that's a pretty cool shape that I made here with the pen. And you can tell that it's still very smooth. So I suggest the pen because you can see the smooth quality of the graphics that we're trying to go for. If I were to create this same shape with our brush, let me get a new artboard because I don't have a lot of room here. I made that shape very big. So let's compare these shapes here, and I'm going to try and make the same shape with my brush. If I were to do that, and I know it's an abstract shape, so it's not perfect, but you can see that my brush is a little shaky. And even if I were to grab this new shape that I made and fill it, you can see the difference. It's a little shaky. You can see the anchor points are not connected perfectly, and it doesn't look as perfect and graphic as we're going for with the style. So I would suggest when you can use things like the pen and the shapes, avoid using the brush as much as you can. Never go in with the brush and color like you would think, because that creates this crazy line. I'm just zooming in. Illustrator thinks that every line you make, you want to go back and edit because Illustrator is a perfectionist. So I created this scribble line thinking I was coloring in my shape, but really I was creating this line that I could edit, and that's not really what we want in this program. So now I have this crazy editable scribble, and sure, I can go back and kind of move it around if I would like to, but it'd be way easier to do what I did earlier and take this entire thing, go down to fill, and fill it. Okay? All right, so those are the basics. I wanted to show you the difference between the pen and the brush, a lot of the shape tools, and our artboards. So that's all I'm going to start with. Let me show you the eraser really quick, actually, because some people get confused right off the bat with our eraser. So our eraser takes the material and moves it around. So if I go and I erase through here, it will create a stroke line between both of those sections. It's actually very cool if you think about what it's doing, but it's very frustrating if you don't know that that's going to happen. So instead of erasing and having it be gone, I could fix this little bit. That would be a good use of my eraser tool. But if I want to erase the whole thing, it's going to create a new shape. So that's actually a really great tool for you to create new shapes. So if I have this little shape here and I want to say, oh, I like this, but let me kind of separate it, that can be done very quickly with the eraser. So I want to make that clear to you guys before you start the project as well. All right, so in my next video, I'll talk about project 1 specifically. So if you're looking for that, that'll be in the next one. So this whole video is just about basics in Illustrator. So I hope this helps.